Shoot, 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 shoot.
Hey guys, welcome again. It's your boy Rent City, host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts, doing this weekly NFL recap. It's been super fun and love doing it. Week 6 has been crazy. It was crazy. And before we dive into what's going to go down in week 7, there were some big trades, but we'll get to those after we roll through these recaps. And jumping way back to Thursday, what a game we had, this NFC West showdown between the San Francisco 49ers and Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, they started the game, they were looking good, moving the ball well on their first drive, big play, DK Metcalf. Then Geno Smith, he got picked off by fourth round draft pick out of Wake Forest, Malik Mustafa. He was filling in for Hufanga, and Geno overshot his receiver, and he was picked off. Bad red zone interception. The 49ers would just get a field goal out of that. Matthew Wright making his debut for the injured Jake Moody, knocking it through to make a 3-0 lead. Seattle punt again, and Brock Purdy would find Deebo Samuel. Excuse me, and he'd make the tackler whiff, and Samuel would go all the way to pay dirt. 76-yard touchdown. San Francisco up big, or 10-0 to start. Seattle would then fumble the kickoff, leading to another 49ers field goal. They're up 13-0. Seattle would punt again, but we'd see some more injuries coming the 49ers' way. After a nice run by Jordan Mason, he'd leave the game looking hurt, needing help off. Go in the locker room, he'd get an x-ray, wouldn't return to the game. We'd later find out he'd suffer an AC joint sprain in his shoulder, and he might be out for a little bit here. 49ers again couldn't punch it in the end zone, settling for a right field goal again, his third of the game already, making it 16-0. Seattle did manage to get a Jason Myers field goal to end the first half, so they did get some points on the board, trailing 16-3 at half. San Francisco started the second half with the ball, went on a long drive, a nice Brock Purdy touchdown to George Kittle, showing off the toe tap to make it 23-3. Seattle needed any kind of play and got it with Chenault Jr. taking a kickoff, returning it 87 yards for the touchdown, the second kickoff return for a touchdown this NFL season so far, cutting the lead to 23-10. Seattle would then have another nice drive with Kenneth Walker, the third, punching it in to cut the lead to 23-17. Now we'd see a little bit of a ridiculous play with a little bit of a ridiculous explanation. The 49ers punted. It looked like the Seahawks touched the ball. The 49ers recovered. The officials said they couldn't see the ball, like see who touched who, so they had to say we had to go to an instant replay review, and they talked to the replay center, and they said they didn't have the same video that the broadcast had, which seemed weird. You think they'd have the same video or maybe more. They're the one making these decisions, right? But anyway, Seattle kept the ball. Geno would then think Metcalf was going to cut across the field, but he cut up instead. And Geno would throw his second pick of the game. And again, this time a rookie got it. Second time a rookie picked him off. This time the second rounder out of Florida State, Renardo Green. And from that turnover, Purdy found Kittle, who returned from a quick trip to the locker room to score his second touchdown. This one was 9 yards out, and he and teammate Kyle Juszczyk jumped into the crowd to celebrate with their wives, who were sitting right there. 49ers failed to get the two-point conversion, and they'd still lead 29-17. The Seahawks would answer the touchdown just under 2 minutes ago in the fourth. Geno Smith finding Tyler Lockett in the end zone from 9 yards out, cutting the lead to 29-24. Seattle kicked off, and on the 49ers' first play, rookie fourth-round pick out of Louisville, Isaac Orendo would pull a 70-yard run to get inside the 5. He went down to try to kill more clock, and the team said they didn't tell him to, but there's some debate there. Regardless, one player was happy the rookie went down was fullback Kyle Juszczyk, because he'd score from 6 yards out. And again, he, Kittle, and teammate Deebo would jump into the crowd to celebrate with their wives. So it was a good day for San Francisco as they went into Seattle and picked up the 36-24 road win. First win in the NFC West this season, and Seattle's second straight loss at home. With that result, both teams now sit at 3-3. Another London game over in well, London, I guess, or the NFL, and Jacksonville was coming off their first win of the season, playing their first of back-to-back London games. Their first game, they were the visiting team, taking on the Chicago Bears, who were coming in winners of two in a row, and the Bears got the ball first, but punted it away, and Jacksonville was looking to end this streak of 10 consecutive games without a opening drive touchdown, and things looked good. Trevor Lawrence found Gabe Davis in the end zone, but the Bears defense knocked it away. And that streak continued as it went to 11 consecutive games without a opening drive touchdown. They settled for the Cam Little field goal and led 3-0 in London. The Bears offense, they failed to do much again, punting it again and losing their long snapper, Scott Daly, in the process. He had left the game with a knee injury, replaced by tight end Cole Kmet, who would have to long snap the rest of the game. But the Jaguars offense continued to struggle, and they punted it right back. And the Bears pulled off a nice little play here. Fake screen to the left, fake it to the right. Caleb Williams found a wide open Cole Kmet down the middle of the field. He went 31 yards for the game's first touchdown, then delivered a nice long snap on the extra point, and the Bears led 7-3. Jags got a good return on the kickoff, setting them up with great field position. And on the first play, Trevor Lawrence found Travis Etienne Jr. He had it punched out, though. Bears recovered, play was reviewed, call was overturned. Lucky break for the Jags. What were they going to do with it? Well, they wouldn't do much, and they'd take no advantage and punt it away. In Chicago, they'd look good. Caleb Williams was looking all right. Number one overall pick, found fellow rookie Rome Odunze on a big chunk to play to get the drive going. Then Williams would have all the time in the world, and he decided to air it deep to DJ Moore, except the ball hung up a bit, and it was picked off by Andre Cisco. Big turnover as the Chicago was already deep in Jacksonville territory looking to expand that lead. But again, the Jaguars 3-0. Bears defense getting the ball right back to their rookie quarterback. And he'd show off with the legs going on a long run, scrambling his way to midfield before the 2-minute warning. And the Bears continued to move the ball. Again, Williams scrambling, going 20 yards, getting inside the 5. From there, he'd find Kmet for their second touchdown connection. And the Bears led 14-3 at halftime. Jaguars opened the second half with the ball and needed something to go their way. Lawrence found tight end Evan Engram on what looked to be a good play, but Bears' TJ Edwards punched the ball out, and the Bears recovered again, giving the Bears the offense at the 41. Caleb Williams would find Keenan Allen on a big third down to keep the chains moving. Then after a penalty, moved them back a bit. Williams found Keenan Allen again, this time in the end zone, putting the ball in a tight window. Williams' third touchdown toss of the game, and Keenan Allen's first since coming to the Bears from the Chargers. 21 unanswered points for the Bears as they led 21-3. Jaguars went up tempo. They needed anything to go their way, getting in the Bears' territory, and after a penalty pushed them back, Lawrence would throw a nice dart while on the move, finding Gabe Davis in the end zone, and this time he'd hold on, making up for that earlier drop. His first touchdown catch with his new team, and the Jaguars' first touchdown of the game cut the lead to 21-10. Jags defense was hoping to get the ball back to their offense, try to keep the ball rolling, but on a big third down, they sacked Caleb Williams, but they had too many men on the field, giving the Bears another third down opportunity. Williams faced tons of pressure and just chucked it up. And again, the Jags picked up a defensive penalty, defensive holding, automatic first down. Very next play, 19-yard play by Swift, got the Bears in the field goal range. But again, faced with a third and long, the Jags defense holding penalty, automatic first down to the Bears. A few plays later, we'd get into the fourth quarter, and that's where Caleb Williams would find Keenan Allen, their second touchdown connection of the game. Williams' fourth touchdown pass of the game, and the Bears were up 28-10. So many chances to get off the field, they just couldn't. And the Jaguars would fumble the ensuing kickoff and would recover it to keep their slim chances alive, but that was still a few plays later when Trevor Lawrence was intercepted by Josh Blackwell. Another takeaway for that Bears defense. 8 straight games for a turnover with that defense that was racking them up in this game. On the next play, Caleb Williams scrambled around before finding Cole Kmet to get into a first goal situation. And from there, Williams found DJ Moore. He'd get down to the one where it was initially called in, but it was overturned. But this Bears team, all they do is score, and DeAndre Swift punched it in to make it 35-10. Jaguars trying to get anything going. They were moving the ball down the field with haste, and Trevor Lawrence found first-round pick Brian Thomas Jr. in the end zone, but he'd failed to make the catch. Another drop ball in the end zone for Jacksonville on the day. Thomas Jr., he's been playing pretty well this season, only had 3 grabs and 27 yards in the game. Jaguars forced with a 4th and goal, and Lawrence squeezed one into Davis, their second touchdown of the connection out of the game. They wouldn't get the 2-point conversion and trailed 35-16. The Bears would recover the onside kick from the Jaguars, and their only blemish on the game really was the Cairo Santos missed field goal. At that point, Trevor Lawrence was pulled, and we'd see backup Mac Jones, but that didn't really impact the game. Bears pick up the 35-16 win, and as a Packers guy, it's hard to give praise to the division rivals, but Caleb Williams, man, from week 1 to now, it's almost day and night. He's making smarter plays. He's trusting the play to develop. He's going through the receiver progressions, looking very worthy of a number 1 overall pick. And when he does make a mistake, his defense totally has his back, there to help him out. This is a scary team for anyone to face. And for the Jaguars, this is bad. I mean, at least they're stuck in the UK, so they aren't hearing all the local news back here in North America. But I gotta admit, I drank from the Jaguars Kool-Aid for the owner Shahid Khan was serving. I say it all the time, how I thought this Jaguars was going to make it to the playoffs as a wild card. I'm not drinking from that Kool-Aid. No more. No excuses there. But where do you start with this team? The very high quarterback is not playing near the level that he was expected to. The defense is playing so undisciplined. I had tweeted or X'd out there how the defense was MC Cheddar bombing from 8 Mile every play, just shooting themselves and leaving that defense out to slaughter. Trevor Lawrence and his 3 and outs, they don't help the Jaguars' defensive numbers. Maybe the week across in the Atlantic will somehow bring the group together, but it's looking like a lost season, and it hurts, Like the owner said, he felt this was the best team assembled by the Jacksonville Jaguars ever. I keep referencing that quote because it's like he dropped Macbeth on the stage or something. He put a curse on this team. Now, you got to wonder, what head coach Doug Peterson, when is he getting his walking papers? I don't think they'll fire him in London in back-to-back games, but we see another lackluster London event. Well, yeah, we could see Doug Peterson having an awkward flight home to the States here. We'll see what happens in their next game, but the Bears, wow, they really stuck it to the Jaguars there. In the Sunday games that weren't in London, you had one of the juiciest matchups of the NFL. The Washington Commanders, winners of 4 in a row with young star, number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, visiting the Baltimore Ravens, who have a pretty good quarterback of their own. They had won 3 games in a row, and I mentioned that quarterback, Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP, and last year's MVP, of course, and kind of a local derby of atmosphere because the teams, despite being in different conferences, play within pretty close proximity. The stadium is less than 40 miles apart, so a little bit of a local rivalry there. And a big play on the Ravens first down. They had Zay Flowers taking a short catch and taking it deep in the Commanders' territory, where Lamar Jackson looked for tight end Mark Andrews, with the ball was picked off after tipped by the rookie out of Haiti, Mike Sanders. Still, it was his first career interception for the 2nd-round pick out of Michigan. Commanders taking control of the ball, and off that turnover, a big play to Austin Eckler got the Commanders in the red zone. The Ravens defense stood up, and Austin Seibert hit a field goal to give the Commanders the early 3-0 lead. Ravens responded by marching down the field with some Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson taking turns running. On one of Jackson's runs, he passed Cam Newton, the move in the second all-time on the quarterback rushing yards list. Congrats to him on that. That Ravens drive would stall, and Tucker would hit a field goal to tie it up. Both the offenses were struggling a bit, and Baltimore would get pinned in their own end, but Lamar Jackson would find Zay Flowers on some nice plays, getting in the end zone. Then they got a little help through a Commanders defensive PI, leading the Ravens getting the ball at the 4-yard line. And, well, you know what they do from there. Derrick Henry would punch it in. They give the Ravens a 10-3 lead with his touchdown. Commanders picked up a big play from the old flea flicker screenplay to the running back, and Austin Eckler got the ball deep in the Baltimore territory, where Jaden Daniels found Terry McLaurin on the touchdown pass, tying this one up at 10. And late in the first half, Jackson was moving the ball for the Ravens, where Mark Andrews caught a touchdown from 13 yards out, capping off a drive with his first touchdown catch of the season and his 41st of his NFL career, tying him with Todd Heap for the Ravens franchise record for touchdown catches. Mark Andrews now just trails Ray Rice at 43 and all-time leader running back Jamal Lewis at 47. And that touchdown put the Ravens up 17-10. Commanders looked to answer with a late first-half field goal, but Seibert's kick was nowhere close, and the Ravens did take that 17-10 lead going into halftime. The Commanders would open up with a field goal, and that would get answered by a Tucker field goal. The exchange of field goals had us sitting at 20-13. The Ravens got the ball, marching down the field again, where they found Mark Andrews to help get down the field, and they capped that drive off with another Derrick Henry powerful run. His second of the day from 7 yards out gave the Ravens a 27-13 lead. Commanders drove down the field and got faced with a tough fourth down in Ravens territory, but Jaden Daniels would find Terry McLaurin on a perfect timed route, securing the well-guarded catch for the touchdown. The extra point had a hand on it, but still went through, and the lead was cut to 27-20. That second touchdown of the connection between Daniels and McLaurin was really nice there. Baltimore answered by going down the field, getting another Justin Tucker field goal to make it a two-possession game at 30-20. And Washington was faced with fourth and long, and Daniels just chucked it and hoped for the best, and a defensive PI would give them the first down, where Seibert would hit a field goal to cut it to a one-possession game, 30-23, with under 3 to go. Commanders needed to stop to stay in the game, but instead gave up a 27-yard run to Derrick Henry before the 2-minute warning. Then when faced with a third down, Lamar Jackson would pick up the game-sealing first down, preserving the 30-23 win for the Ravens. Their fourth in a row, and it was a battle. The Ravens have looked dynamite, ripping off four straight wins after dropping 2 to start the season, and they're the real deal. You know, that combination of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, it's legit. Doesn't seem fair sometimes, but they're the real deal. The Commanders, they don't need to hold their heads here. They can keep their chins up. They were in this game. They fought back. Chances to win this game. You got to love the fight out of the team, and I feel like you're always going to get that out of a Dan Quinn team, but Jaden Daniels, despite the loss, still played amazing, and I will continue to say he's not an ordinary rookie. He's going to be one of the best ones. The number 1 and number 2 pick in this draft. These quarterbacks, they're starting to look really good here. Big NFC South matchup: Tampa Bay taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Bucs had a long wait to try to make up for that overtime loss on Thursday Night Football the week prior. And they were hosting a Saints team that had been reeling a bit since winning those first 2 wins of the season. Last episode, I'm like, I think Carr would get back into this, but the Carr stayed in the shop, and we get to see 5th-round pick out of South Carolina, Spencer Rattler. Tampa Bay, they moved the ball down the field with ease, capping the drive off of Baker Mayfield finding Chris Godwin. That 4-yard touchdown put Tampa Bay up early, and as I'd mentioned, we get our first look at 5th-round pick Spencer Rattler. He'd find Chris Olave, but he'd take a big hit, and he'd fumble where the Bucs picked it up. Antoine Winfield Jr. returning it 58 yards for a touchdown. It was looked at, but the call stood, and Tampa had a 14-0 lead in the first 7 minutes of the game. But big news for the Saints was what happened to Chris Olave. After that hit, he'd go to the locker room with a concussion, and he would not return to the game. Tampa Bay kept adding points, this time through a field goal by Chase McLaughlin, and we'd see some amazing plays by Rattler, scampering around, picking up a big third down, which would lead to a field goal, the Saints' first of the game, cutting the lead to 17-3, and the Saints needed something, and they'd get a big play. Tampa was punting from their own end zone, and where they'd kick to Rashid Shaheed, he'd return the ball 54 yards for a speedy touchdown, and that cut the lead to 17-10. Buccaneers were trying to answer and looking to increase their lead, but Baker Mayfield was picked off by Paulson Adebo. And the Saints would get a nice return, but they'd settle for a field goal. And despite the Bucs playing, it seemed a lot better, they only led 17-13. Then the Saints got the ball back, and Spencer Rattler looked to get out. So they're rolling around, finding fellow rookie Bub Means. The 5th-round pick out of Pitt took his first touchdown catch on Rattler's first touchdown toss. It was going to be tough on who kept that ball, and with that 10-yard score, the Saints actually led 20-17. The lead was brief, though, as Tampa moved down the field and capped the drive off of Baker Mayfield, spotting second-year man out of Syracuse, Sean Tucker. He'd scamper 36 yards to the end zone, scoring his first career touchdown in the NFL, and Tampa went back up 24-20. But this game was wild. The Saints answered immediately. From around midfield, Rattler would buy some time before finding tight end Foster Moreau. That got them deep in the Bucs territory, and from there, Alvin Kamara would punch in the 4-yard touchdown, putting the Saints up again, 27-24. That was the third lead change in 6 minutes. Tampa was looking for a quick answer, but Baker's pass was tipped at the line by Brian Brees, where Cam Jordan would pick it off, ending their drive right there and putting us in the halftime. Where in the second half, the Saints were moving the ball again. Spencer Rattler found Bub Means again, and he was looking to pick up more yards, but Tampa's Tyke Smith punched it out. which was then recovered by the Bucks, killing some Saints momentum there. And on Tampa's ensuing drive, we'd see some bad tackling by New Orleans, where a play from Chris Godwin should have been a check down, but instead of a 2-yard gain, it was a 55-yard touchdown, and Tampa was back up 31-27. The Bucks' next drive, Baker Mayfield tried to pick up the first down with his legs. He came up short and looked a little gimpy. The Bucks would have to punt, but after Mayfield was checked out, he'd stay in the game. And on the first play of the fourth quarter, Spencer Rattler was looking downfield and he threw his first career NFL interception. And he picked off by Zion McCollum, bringing the ball back for the Bucks on a nice return. The fourth-round pick out of Oregon, rookie Bucky Irving would bust a big 31-yard run after some nice stiff arms for Tampa Bay. Then Sean Tucker would get Tampa even deeper in the Saints' territory, and from there, Baker would dance around a bit, showing that he was a little healthier, finding tight end Cade Otton his first touchdown of the season. A lot of first touchdowns here in this game, and Mayfield's fourth touchdown pass of the game, where Tampa would try to go for two and fail to convert, still leading 37-27. Tampa would then get the ball back, and their offense didn't stop. Bucky Irving again looking effective on the field, punching one in from 1 yard out. And they'd lead 44-27. Spencer Rattler was trying to learn on the fly and forced a tough throw that usually only forced in comeback situations. It was picked off by Tyke Smith, who had himself a game. Tampa kept doing their thing. Backup running back Sean Tucker kept his great day going, running in a 5-yard touchdown. His second touchdown of the day put Tampa up 51-27. Big 50 burger for the Bucks as they almost put up 600 yards in offense. This was a beatdown by the Buccaneers to put them back on winning ways, and that's the Tampa Bay we've been used to seeing in their wins. And they made up for that tough loss to Atlanta by taking it out on their fellow divisional foes, moving to 4-2 on the season. And the score does look pretty one-sided. I mean, look at that. But you think this was all Tampa. But going into halftime, remember, the Saints were up 27-24. Sure, they got skunked in the second half, 27-0. But Spencer Rattler had some good moments, and at least if Derek Carr is still missing some time, you can at least try to work on developing Rattler a little bit. Lots of good things for the Saints, but mostly bad as they lose their fourth in a row and drop to 2-4 after that hot start that seems like eons ago. Yet another divisional battle, an AFC South, this was not a divisional battle. This was a conference battle in the AFC in Foxborough, where you had two teams going in two different directions. The Houston Texans responded to their first loss of the season by winning 2 in a row coming into this one, while the Patriots shocked the Bengals in week 1. And since then, it's been all downhill. Losers of 4 in a row coming into this one. And in last episode, I was saying we might see Drake May soon, but he'd get the start. The 3rd overall pick was announced to take the starting job, usurping Jacoby Brissett on the depth chart and taking his first start into a tough Texans team. And May would be without his leading rusher, Ramondre Stevenson, missing the game with a foot injury. And Houston, C.J. Stroud, they were moving the ball down the field very effectively. Joe Mixon back down the field and looking good, making his first appearance since getting injured in week 2. The Texans were faced with a 3rd and goal. Pass interference really helped them. And from there, Stroud would found Tank Dell, giving the Texans a 7-0 lead. Patriots got the ball after the score, and we'd see Drake May. We'd see him at his first start, and he'd start his career off with a 3-0. Not ideal, but Texans got the ball back again. Like I said, Joe Mixon looking nice out there. C.J. Stroud would find him out of the backfield, and Mixon would score from 10 yards out to give the Texans a 14-0 lead. Drake May trying to move the ball down the field, and we'd see his first career interception of the NFL, getting intercepted by 3rd-round pick out of USC, Kalen Bullock. That again led to great field position, and a week after Texans kicker Kaimi Fairbairn won Special Teams Player of the Week, he'd miss a chip shot, keeping that score at 14-0. But again, the Patriots offense didn't do much with that, and Joe Mixon busted off a 59-yard touchdown to put Houston deep in the Patriots territory, where Stroud was looking for Schultz in the end zone, but the ball was tipped and intercepted by Marcus Jones of the Patriots. Big defensive play killing the drive there. And in the dying seconds of the first half, Drake May would sky one deep, finding Kayshon Boutte on a 40-yard touchdown bomb, that first NFL touchdown of Drake May's career. And it was a nice one, cutting that lead to 14-7 before the halftime break. And early in the second quarter, the Texans would score on the first possession of the half. Just 90 seconds of game time in the third quarter, C.J. Stroud would find Stephon Trevon Diggs. 10-yard touchdown, putting the Texans up 21-7. Fairbairn would get another chance at a field goal. This time he'd knock it through to put them up 24-7. And the Patriots were trying to do anything to answer, where May would find Austin Hooper. And the tight end was looking for some more yards, but he'd fumble the ball, which was recovered by the Texans, which led to another Fairbairn field goal, giving them the 27-7 lead. Patriots answered with a nice drive. Drake May was looking good on that one, finding another tight end, Hunter Henry, and he'd score on a 6-yard play, cutting that Texans lead to 27-14. Patriots offense had the ball again, but Drake May's pass was tipped, intercepted by Eric Murray, his second interception toss of the game. Joe Mixon busted a 20-yard touchdown run to put the Texans up 34-14. The presence of Mixon, like I said, you could feel it throughout the game. The Texans are just way better with him in the lineup. Pats would answer with Drake May finding Demario Douglas. He'd go 35 yards for the touchdown. Drake May's third career touchdown and third of the game cut the lead to 34-21. But Houston's offense was rolling. They'd get more points. Dameon Pierce, he was in his first game since week 1, ran a 54-yard touchdown for the Texans, increasing that lead to a 20-point margin. That running game for Houston, it returned in a big way. Houston cruised to the 41-21 win. The Texans are showing last year was no joke. Even without the league's leader in receiving yards, Nico Collins, the Texans still dropped 41 points. Shows the depth of this team. As I mentioned, they're so much better when that running game's rolling. Looking forward to their game next week, but I'll get more to that in the prediction portion of this episode. But for the Patriots, end result looked pretty bad, but there were some positives. Drake May, he looked like he belongs on the NFL field. He's just going to have to get that on-field experience. He got to sit back and watch Jacoby Brissett. Great vet. He got to watch him for a few games, and I think that's helped prepare him a little bit. But playing and watching are two different things. So when Ramondre Stevenson returns, that should help the rookie quarterback even more. And I think he should be a pretty good starter going forward. But that is just one start, and we've only seen him in garbage minutes. So not a lot of time to go off, but we'll see how the Drake May experiment goes forward here. But it's hard to stay optimistic after a 20-point loss. Here's a divisional game, an AFC South game with the Colts and the Titans. And just as I predicted on last week's episode, the Colts would still roll with Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson was still trending in the right direction, but he wasn't ready to go. He was an emergency quarterback if needed, but they were rolling with Flacco. And the Colts were looking to avenge their loss to the Jaguars by taking on the Titans, who were fresh off a bye week. Their first win of the season as well. So the Colts looked impressive going down the field. Flacco carving up the defense. And he'd cap off the long drive with finding Josh Downs in the end zone on a 22-yard score. Colts had the 7-0 lead, and they were looking to add to their score, but Joe Flacco got picked by Amani Hooker. The first pick thrown by Flacco this season, and that gave the Titans great field position. The Titans capitalized on the turnover by Will Levis finding a wide-open Nick Westbrook-Akine on a 9-yard touchdown pass. A little defensive miscommunication led to the Titans wide receiver getting wide open, and Levis found him to tie the game up at 7. Titans were moving down the field again, where quarterback Will Levis scrambled out of bounds, and in the process, he took out a sideline staff member, and he had to get carted off. It didn't look very good. Totally accidental, freak accident, but didn't look good with the dude getting carted off. But it was bothering me because I was watching the Red Zone broadcast, and Scott Hansen kept calling him a ball boy. Like, stop calling this guy a ball boy. He's got gray hair. He's not a ball boy. He's a ball man. But that drive would end with a Nick Folk field goal, and the Titans led for the first time, 10-7. Before the half ended, Matt Gay would hit a field goal to tie it up at 10. And to open the second half, Will Levis marched down the field on a 14-play drive, capping it off with Tony Pollard running it in, putting the Titans back up 17-10. 22-yard touchdown run on 3rd and 19 to regain the lead there. While in field goal range, the Colts were faced with 4th down, and they'd go for it, and Flacco found Downs to convert on the 4th down. But a very unclimactic end to that drive as they just settled for a field goal anyway to open the fourth quarter, trailing 17-13. The Colts, they got a huge gain from a defensive PI on the Titans, where Flacco would buy just enough time against the blitz and toss up a jump ball to Michael Pittman. There were debates whether Pittman was even going to play in this game. There were talks he'd go on the IR with a back injury, but he played, and he'd make that big jump ball catch in the end zone to put the Colts up 20-17. Levis looked to answer, throwing off his back foot, and he'd get intercepted by Julian Blackman. The Colts had a chance to ice the game, but Flacco missed Pierce on a deep ball. Titans offense did nothing and had to kick it away with 2:26 left. Where their defense, they stepped up, forcing a 3-and-out, but only leaving them 12 seconds left in the game from their own 3-yard line. They tried a funky play, but it was not funky enough, and the Colts pulled off the big 2017 win. Flacco doing enough to pull off the win, but we'll see what happens with health at that quarterback position. But for the Titans, another rough loss. 4th and 5 games. And it's not like they played terrible. The defense, they have a good defense. So when the running game looks good, they're not bad. But the quarterback play, I don't want to just shit on Will Levis here, but 16 for 27, 95 yards, a touchdown, that late pick. Not great numbers, but yeah, I don't know. If you want to roll with Mason Rudolph, he was in relief for the only win of the season. Brian Callahan, he might have some quarterback decisions to make going into week 7. Panthers head coach, he made a quarterback change because he felt he owed it to the team. Does Brian Callahan owe it to his team to go in a similar direction, maybe sooner than later? Especially now with his wide receivers going public about their usage. You can't like that. A lot of adversity and tough decisions coming the way of first-time head coach Brian Callahan. Struggling Browns rocked a 3-game losing streak as they went into Philly to take on the Eagles. And the Eagles were coming off a much-needed bye week, trying to get some of their injured players back on the field. And their last game we saw them play, the Bucks beat up on the Eagles. So both teams were itching to play some better football. The Eagles were faced with a 4th down their own territory and went for it, picking it up with the sneak and the clutch 4th down conversion. Didn't lead to much, though, as they'd end up punting. And both offenses were struggling. The Eagles would open the scoring with a 3-0 field goal. And in field goal range, the Eagles again faced with 4th down. A tush push. Second effort got them the 1st down, which was big as a few plays later, Jalen Hurts found a very well-covered A.J. Brown. And he'd make his return to the lineup by making the tough 22-yard touchdown catch, and the Eagles were up 10-0. The Browns were moving the ball pretty effectively. Then Deshaun Watson, he'd get picked off. He'd look to get picked off. You had 2 Eagle defenders going for it, but they'd collide with each other, resulting in the Browns keeping the ball, and Dustin Hopkins would kick a field goal to cut the lead to 10-3. The Eagles were trying a long field goal, a 57-yard field goal attempt by Elliott, but it was blocked by Myles Garrett. It's crazy how this mammoth of a man leapt over the line on his way to blocking the field goal, where it was returned by former Eagle Rodney McLeod for the touchdown. And somehow the Browns were all tied up at 10 here with the Eagles. And then the Eagles had worse news, finding out tight end Dallas Goedert was ruled out for the rest of the game, leaving people who had him in their fantasy team, myself, with 0 points. Another tough blow to the Eagles team, who, like I said, have been riddled with injuries. The Browns opened the second half looking to take the first lead of the game, but Dustin Hopkins' field goal would miss, giving the ball back to Philly, and they'd hit a field goal of their own, so they'd go up 13-10. Browns had a long drive to answer, but penalties stalled the drive before the end zone, and Hopkins would hit this field goal and tied the game at 13 early in the 4th quarter, where Jalen Hurts would spot Devontae Smith on a short crossing route, but there wasn't a Cleveland defender in the picture. Smith would go up the sideline, scoring on a huge 45-yard touchdown to put Philly up 20-13. Browns looked to answer by moving down the field, but constant pre-snap penalties made them settle for another field goal, cutting it to 20-16. The Eagles were looking to kill the game off with ball possession, and Jalen Hurts skied a ball deep to A.J. Brown, who secured the deep pass and really set the Eagles up to go in the victory formation. And it was a hard-fought 20-16 win for Philadelphia. It wasn't pretty by any means. I mean, the running game was limited. Saquon Barkley didn't even eclipse 50 yards rushing. Jalen Hurts played well enough to secure the win, didn't throw a pick, and made winning plays when his team needed to. So pretty good play from the quarterback, I'd say, late. But you can't say the same about the Browns. Deshaun Watson, again, struggled in those moments. Didn't find his receivers, and when he did, they had big drops. The 1-5 Browns should probably be better than they are, but the soul-crushing pre-snap penalties, inability to get winning plays out of the quarterback, huge. I don't think the Browns will look at the quarterback change, not yet anyway. Stefanski seems pretty set on playing Watson. I mean, they're giving him all that money. But there is some chance we might see the return of Nick Chubb soon. The running back hasn't played since suffering that ghastly injury in Week 2 last season, where he tore his ACL, MCL, and meniscus. ultimately requiring 2 separate surgeries. It's just amazing he can come back and his career isn't over. And it is pretty wild how quick it is. So I'm just hoping the struggling Browns team doesn't try to put everything on his shoulders coming back from such a severe injury. Maybe his presence alone will be some motivation. Little Willis Reed in the New York Knicks championship kind of feel. But we'll see what happens there. The Browns need any kind of spark they can get and some pre-snap discipline. So we'll see how the Browns bounce back from another tough loss. A game I was really looking to on the schedule, the Arizona Cardinals, fresh off that win over San Francisco, was visiting my Green Bay Packers. And we bounced back from that Minnesota loss by beating the Rams, and we're looking to keep the winning ways going. Jordan Love would lead the Packers down the field, getting deep in the Cardinals' territory. We're on 3rd and goal. He found Jaden Reed from 5 yards out, putting the Packers up 7-0. Packers got the ball back again, and again facing a tough 3rd down. Jordan Love found Romeo Doubs, who made a touchdown by diving into the end zone, putting the Packers up 14-0. They get the ball again, but wouldn't make the end zone, and Braden Nervison would hit a field goal to make it 17-0. Cardinals offense was struggling against that Packers defense and needed any kind of spark. Cardinals went to punt, and Green Bay's Jaden Reed fumble with Arizona recovering. However, there were offsetting penalties, and the Cardinals had to retake it. Where this time, Reed was out and Keyshawn Nixon was in, and he returned it 43 yards. Where the very next play was a play-action pass with Jordan Love finding Christian Watson on a 44-yard touchdown pass. And the Packers were up 24-0 with 4.5 to go in the first. The Cardinals finally got some momentum, moving the ball down the field where Kyler Murray would find Michael Wilson Jr. on an 18-yard touchdown pass, cutting that lead to 24-7. Jordan Love was looking for more points, though, but his wide receiver fell, and Jordan Love's pass was picked off by Sean Murphy-Bunting. He'd get a nice return, putting Arizona in good field position where they'd settle for a field goal. They were down 24-10 at halftime. Cardinals would move the ball to start the second half, but settle for another field goal, cutting that lead to 24-13. And the Packers answered by moving the field down on their own, and Jordan Love tossed it up with some pressure in his face, finding Romeo Doubs on the 20-yard touchdown reception. That second-yard touchdown connection of the game put Green Bay up 31-13, and this was the response you were hoping for out of Doubs. He suspended last game prior for conduct detrimental to the team, and he could not have responded in a better way. Arizona looked to respond on a screenplay, but Connor fumbled and was covered by Green Bay deep in Arizona territory, where rookie kicker Braden Nervison attempted a field goal, but he'd miss. His 5th field goal miss in 6 weeks. Packers still had 31-13, but the job security was not looking good for the rookie kicker. The Cardinals were again looking for points, and Greg Dortch, the receiver, secured the catch before getting the ball peanut punched away by rookie safety Evan Williams, where the Packers recovered. Nervison responded by his earlier field goal and miss by making one to make it 34-13. Cardinals again turned it over. This time a bad handoff exchange led to another Packer fumble recovery. That really summed up the game for Arizona as a relatively easy home win for the Packers, cruising to a 34-13 win at Lambeau. And I was very happy with the Packers' play. Jordan Love, his accurate throws, threw for 4 touchdowns, that 1 interception, but to be fair, his wide receiver did fall. To be fair. Plus, the running game by committee led to the tune of 179 yards rushing. I mean, if this team can run effectively as that, while Jordan Love does his thing, Packers could maybe win this very tough NFC North. But as I mentioned, that job security of their kicker, Braden Nervison, well, not so secure. Was said that despite with his early season struggles that have been on full display, the Packers have released the rookie kicker, replacing him with a vet, Brandon McManus. He last suited up for Jacksonville, but he spent most of his career kicking in Denver. And you hate to see people go, but you got to understand the decision. I mentioned the Packers' running game. Excuse me, just needed a sip there. But Arizona didn't even break the century mark in rushing yards. That really puts more pressure on Kyler Murray, who didn't really have answers. And it didn't help that number 4 overall pick, Marvin Harrison Jr., left the game in the second quarter with a concussion. And he'd leave with 0 points as well. And I mentioned Dallas Goedert. I had both those guys on my fantasy team. Double goose eggs. I mean, this isn't about me on my fantasy team, so I'm hoping that Marvin Harrison Jr. can return from concussion sooner than later. It sounds like he's in concussion protocol, which doesn't usually bode well for a swift return, so we'll see how the Cardinals respond with potentially their rookie missing some games here. Steelers are losers of 2 in a row after starting the season 3-0, and they were visiting Las Vegas looking for more than live shows. The Vegas Raiders were coming into this game after losing to a divisional foe, Denver. And the loss was enough to trigger a Raiders quarterback change, and we'd see Gardner Minshew benched for Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell would get the start over Minshew in this one, and a little quarterback controversy with Pittsburgh, but Justin Fields again was starting. This time Russell Wilson was ready as an emergency backup if needed. Steelers would open the game with a 52-yard Boswell field goal, giving them the 3-0 lead. Aiden O'Connell looked good running the Raiders' offense to start, leading the Raiders down the field. They'd capped the drive off with an Alexander Madison 3-yard touchdown run, and the Raiders were up 7-3. Steelers, nice drive, but again, no touchdowns, and Boswell would hit a field goal that cut the lead to 7-6. Late in the first half, the Raiders were looking to increase their lead, where rookie running back, sixth-round pick out of New Hampshire, Dylan Lobby had the ball punched out by T.J. Watt. Steelers recovered the fumble with great field position, and from there, the Steelers were looking for some points, but Justin Fields looked to get picked by Diablo, but there was a roughing the passer penalty on Adam Butler. He was called up from the practice squad, and that was a big penalty. He had given the ball in Pittsburgh's hands, where they'd get faced with a 4th and 1, and after faking the run inside, Fields would take it outside, sneaking into the end zone, putting Pittsburgh ahead again. They'd go for 2, but not convert, leading 12-7. The Raiders were looking to take a lead in the halftime, but instead found themselves trailing by 5. And after a failed Raiders drive to start the half, they'd look to punt, and Pittsburgh would block the punt, recovering the ball with great field position. They'd then suffer a tough 9-yard loss thanks to an incomplete backwards lateral. Pittsburgh would then look to score on the next play, but Justin Fields was past the line of scrimmage on his throw, and it was a penalty for a legal forward pass, leading to another Boswell field goal, and Pittsburgh led 15-7. The Raiders' offense stalled again, and the Steelers picked up a big play by Jaylen Warren. Then when faced with 3rd and a mile, Vegas' K'Lavon Chasen would hit Fields late. Another roughing the passer penalty gave Pittsburgh the first down. On that same drive, Pittsburgh's Najee Harris would scamper 36 yards for the touchdown down the sideline, diving for the end zone, leaping from 5 yards out to break the plane and put Pittsburgh up 22-7. It was the first rushing touchdown of the season by someone other than Justin Fields. So just before the end of the third quarter, O'Connell found Madison out of the backfield for a touchdown, but a penalty flag for an eligible receiver took that away. The Raiders would have to repeat the down to start the fourth quarter, and looking at the penalty replay, it was kind of tough for the Raiders, and that was big, as the next play, Amir Abdullah would have a physical run getting down to the 1, and he was just stopped a little short, where Abdullah on the next play would fumble and Pittsburgh would recover. So instead of getting points on the board, huge momentum swing, Steelers had the ball. The next Raiders possession, after getting pinned deep in their own territory, Aiden O'Connell would throw a pick from his own end zone. Pittsburgh's Dante Jackson would return it deep in the Raiders' territory. And on the very next play, Justin Fields would run into the end zone on a design run, putting them up 29-7. Late in the fourth quarter, the Raiders, they were looking for their first touchdown since the first, and when faced with 4th down, O'Connell found Christian Wilkerson on a 9-yard score. They'd failed to get the 2-point conversion, and they'd trail 29-13. Their attempted onside kick was recovered easily by Pittsburgh, where they'd move into a 1st and goal situation where they'd get stopped, forcing another Boswell field goal. One of the biggest scorers of the league this year has been the kicker Boswell. He put the Steelers up 32-13. Huge win for Pittsburgh. They needed to end that losing streak and did so in a big way. And I think they need to finish their drives with touchdowns. So like I said, Boswell, he's getting tons of points. And especially if they're playing tougher competition, if you keep settling for field goals, you're not going to have a good time. Justin Fields' passing numbers weren't anything fancy, but like I mentioned, he did have those 2 rushing touchdowns. That puts him at 5 on the season. And in just 6 games, that's pretty good. He's the franchise record for one season is Cordell Stewart, who ran for 11 in 1997. So we'll see if he can keep up with that. He might not get a chance to, but we'll get more to that. The Steeler DNA of run the ball, play good defense seems to be working. It has for many years, and the Steelers, like I said, got back on winning ways. For Las Vegas, this was another stinker. They tried the quarterback change. They went to O'Connell instead of Minshew. Tried to shake things up, and that early touchdown looked good. But as the game went on, the Raiders were just outmatched. It'll be interesting to see what other moves head coach Antonio Pierce has up on under his sleeve. Do you continue to roll with O'Connell? You can't flip-flop week to week with quarterbacks. And quarterback decisions are a lot nicer, when both your quarterbacks are playing well. So we'll see what they do here. The Raiders, they continue to have one of the worst rushing games in the league, finishing with just 57 rushing yards on the day. Regardless of who's at quarterback, that has to get better. I hope they go back to Minshew, but I'm thinking Pierce is going to stick with O'Connell for a bit here. Chargers, this was another AFC or another divisional bout. This one in the AFC West with the LA Chargers coming off a much needed bye week. So they were looking to get their guys healed up. They were in the Mile High City to take on the hot Broncos. Winners of 3 in a row coming in. Broncos rookie quarterback Bo Nix didn't have an ideal start to the game. His early pass was tipped where it was picked off by Elijah Molden, giving the Chargers great field position. They stalled though, and they'd have to settle for a Cameron Dicker, the kicker, field goals. They went up 3-0. Those early plays weren't even the biggest news of the game. Before the game got going, Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh, they go into a blue medical tent. He would then go to the locker room before returning to the game. It was later said the coach suffered an irregular heartbeat. Scary stuff. Good to see him back coaching on the field, though. And in his absence, defensive coordinator Jesse Minter was running the show. And I mentioned how the Ravens won earlier in the day, and before their post-game press conference, the media alerted Ravens head coach and Jim's brother, John Harbaugh, who would immediately go to reach out to his brother. A classy move by the media doing that for him there. But after all this craziness, the Chargers look for a big play, and 6th-round pick out of Troy, Kamani Vidal, the running back, made a wicked catch on a wheel route. Just a nice catch, nice throw. His first NFL touch was a beautiful touchdown, putting the Chargers up 10-0. Still weird to see him in Austin Eckler's old number 30, but that's business in the NFL. Chargers had their 19th play of an insanely long drive, and on it, Justin Herbert was sacked. So again, another field goal, 13-0. And late in the first half, Denver's Javonte Williams fumbled the ball where the Chargers recovered. And from there, they'd capitalize. Taking advantage of the short field, J.K. Dobbins would reach out and break the play. His third rushing touchdown of the season put the Chargers up 20-0. The Broncos were trying to respond any way they could, and they had a big 46-yard play to Courtland Sutton, but a holding penalty negated that play, and that basically ended any chance of points. And Denver went into halftime trailing the Chargers 20-0. Chargers, they'd get the first points of the second half. Another Dicker kicker field goal, 23-0. And there's no quit in this Broncos team. You got to like that out of Sean Payton's squad here. Bo Nix found Devon Vele on a big 4th down conversion to get into a 1st-and-goal situation, where Bo Nix would then find his former college teammate at Oregon, Troy Franklin, his first NFL touchdown catch, and that college connected for the first time in the NFL, cut the lead to 23-7. And it wasn't the only college connection on the score. Broncos starting center, Luke Wattenberg, he's on IR. So backup center Alex Forsyth got his first NFL start, and the former Duck snapped it to Bo Nix, another Duck, who found Franklin in the end zone. It was a full Duck party in Denver on that score. The Chargers offense again did nothing, punching it to Denver, where the Broncos picked up a big 4th down in Charger territory to keep their drive going. And Bo Nix then found Courtland Sutton in the back of the end zone, a 15-yard touchdown, a ridiculous catch that was discussed before the touchdown was given. Replay confirmed the decision, and the touchdown stood. Denver went for 2 but didn't convert, and they were down 23-13. Chargers were trying to run the clock down, and Justin Herbert found Simi Fehoko on a shovel pass, but he got hit, and he'd fumble with Denver recovering. But the turnover was taken away because of a defensive holding penalty on Denver, keeping the ball with the Chargers, where they did take some more time off the clock for getting knocked out of field goal range and having to punt it. They pinned Denver deep in their territory, but they moved the ball quickly, getting the field goal range where Will Lutz hit a field goal, cutting it to 23-16, a one-possession game. Denver tried the onside kick, and it would go out of bounds, but there was a penalty on both sides. Offsetting penalties gave Denver another chance, where they had another chance at recovering, but the ball had a little too much heat on it and went out of bounds. But again, LA took possession, victory formation, securing the 23-16 win. It's a big win for LA, especially after going up 23-0. That would have been a disastrous lead to give up. But more importantly, it's good to see Jim Harbaugh's okay. It's been said he'll be wearing a heart monitor for the next few weeks, taking blood thinners. Scary scene that could have been a lot worse. His team looked good in the first half too. The second half, not so lucky. They're not so good. I mean, they're lucky to have pulled off the win. Turnover that was saved by penalty. That if that went the other way, who knows what could have happened. Justin Herbert, he survived the game. He wasn't injured. A big win out of the bye week to move to 3-2. For the Broncos, I mean, it was just a bad start. You can't go down 23-0 and expect to win in the NFL usually. Bad early interception by Nix, which was tough because it was tipped. I mean, they looked all right coming back. But as I mentioned on previous episodes, I think they got a good one in Bo Nix. He showed resilience. He really did his best to battle back for his team. And the Broncos defense, when they get going, they're a really good defense. Nice determination on the comeback attempt. But the Broncos winning streak ended at 3. And we'll see how the Broncos respond in a quick turnaround playing on Thursday Night Football today. So we had another divisional battle for reals in the NFC South. Battle of two teams going in opposite directions. The Falcons had just knocked off the other two NFC South teams before this one, heading into Carolina for their third divisional bout in as many weeks. While the Panthers were losers of 2 in a row after picking up their only win of the season in week 3. The Panthers looked great early. The offense had a big play when Dalton found Deontay Johnson to get into their end zone. And there, Andy Dalton found Johnson again, this time in the end zone. And the Panthers led 7-0 after the 10-yard score. Atlanta would answer with a nice 12-play drive, capping the drive off with a Bijan Robinson touchdown. His 5-yard score tied the game at 7. Atlanta was looking for more points, and Ray McLeod looked to make a nice catch down the field, but the play was reviewed, and the decision was overturned, resulting in a fumble, which was recovered by the Panthers, giving Carolina great field position. Falcons' defense would stand tall, though, forcing an Eddie Pinheiro field goal, and the Panthers led again at 10-7. The Falcons looked to answer quickly, and Kirk Cousins found Kyle Pitts on a huge play getting deep in Carolina territory, where Bijan Robinson punched in his second rushing touchdown of the game, this time from 7 yards out, and a penalty on the play would give the Falcons a chance to go for 2, where Tyler Algier punched it in, putting the Falcons up 15-10. Late in the first half, Carolina looked to punt, and it had their punt partially blocked, leaving the Falcons getting great field position and where they'd move the ball into a first and goal situation. Coming out of the first half 2-minute warning, Kirk Cousins would find Drake London. 3-yard score put the Falcons up 22-10. The Panthers were looking for some points to end the half, and Dalton would show off the leg, scrambling for a big pickup. A few plays later, they'd find first rounder out of South Carolina, rookie Xavier Leggett in the back of the end zone. Rookie second NFL touchdown, got the lead to 22-17 going into the break. Falcons immediately would go down the field to start the third quarter in a first and goal situation. And then on third down, Cousins looked to find London, but it was ripped away by the defense last second, forcing a Younghoe Koo field goal, increasing the lead to 25-17. Third quarter, it was all about the kicks. Carolina responded with a field goal, Falcons with one of their own, and we go into the fourth quarter, a one-possession game, 28-20. Carolina was moving the ball effectively. They're trying to come back and tie it up. Lots of Edmonton, Alberta's Chuba Hubbard running the ball. I loved when Mark Sanchez calling the game called him the Canadian Express, because that Canadian train was rolling. But the Panthers kind of outthought themselves here. They're like, wow, we're really running the ball effectively. Let's try to switch it up and throw it on them. Andy Dalton would roll out and force a really bad throw on the run, looking for tight end Ian Thomas. The Red Rifle instead threw it in the triple coverage. His pass was picked off by A.J. Terrell, killing the Panthers' drive deep in Falcons territory and killing their momentum. A kind of a back-breaking interception by Dalton. They didn't need that play. The running game was working. Just throw it away and live another down. And the Falcons would rub salt in their wounds by marching all the way down the field, capping their drive off with running back Tyler Algier running it in from 2 yards out. And ATL was up 35-20. What a swing that A.J. Terrell interception had. Carolina looked to answer, and when faced with fourth down, they'd go for it, failing to pick it up, turning it over on downs, where the Falcons would respond with another Younghoe Koo field goal, leading 38-20. Carolina needed points, and Dalton would force a throw that was picked off by Clark Phillips. Any other day, that would have been returned for a pick six, but with the situation at hand, he went down. The Falcons finished the game in the winning formation. Big road win for the Falcons, their third win over divisional rivals, as I said, as the Falcons now sit at 4-2 on the season. Talked about how great Kirk has been the last few games. I mean, the guy literally threw for a franchise record 509 yards the week prior. But he only needed 225 in this game, and that's because of how damn good this running game is. I believe the Falcons' success lies on the productivity of that running game, and it'll be key between the Falcons' team fizzling or sizzling. Tyler Algier, 18 carries, 105 yards. He had that touchdown. Bijan Robinson, 15 carries, 95 yards, and his 2 touchdowns. Almost equal distribution, which you like. And the rushing averages of 5.8 for Algier, 6.3 for Robinson. That doesn't seem fair. The only other team that can run it effectively with 2 guys like that, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. but the Algier Robinson punch, it's physical too. You need ice after you're trying to bring them down. The Falcons, they got to feel good. And for Carolina, the score looks bad. But to start the fourth quarter, as I reiterate, they had that drive going. That Dalton interception, it was a potential 14, 15-point swing. I mean, that's a big-time mistake by the veteran quarterback. But first-time head coach Dave Canales has already said he's going with Dalton in the next game. But at least watching some of these bad mistakes by Dalton, that should help Bryce Young, like, the do's and don'ts of the Dalton. It'll be interesting to see when Canales goes back to Young at the helm. I mean, if Dalton and the Panthers continue to lose, it may be sooner than we think. The Lions took their 2-game winning streak into a bye week, and they were feeling fresh heading into Dallas to determine who was in fact the bigger D. And the Cowboys were puffing their chest like a peacock, much like I said they would in last week's episode. And the Lions acted like a lion would if he was alone with an actual peacock. To start the game, the Cowboys went into the red zone with CeeDee Lamb making a nice catch to get him there. But they'd settle for a Brandon Aubrey field goal and led 3-0. The potent Lions offense looked for a quick response, picking up 45 yards on a play from Goff to Tim Patrick. From there, David Montgomery scored on a powerful 16-yard touchdown run, running through tackles, having his jersey almost ripped a bit. That physical touchdown was his 8th straight game with a touchdown, breaking the Lions' franchise record of legend Billy Sims and giving the Lions a 7-3 lead. Cowboys looked to answer with Prescott finding Jalen Tolbert on a big play. Then Dak was looking for CeeDee Lamb in the corner of the end zone, but Brian Branch picked him off. Tough red zone interception for Dak, giving the ball to Detroit, where they took advantage by getting a Jack Bates field goal to go up 10-3. The Lions got the ball back again, and they'd again pull off a tricky end-around flea flicker, with Jared Goff skying the ball to tight end Sam Laporta, who scored on the 52-yard touchdown. A very exciting player that extended the lead to 17-3. Lions got another Jack Bates field goal to go up to 20-3. Cowboys offense was struggling, and they'd go for it on 4th and 2 in their own area down 20-3, and they wouldn't convert, giving Detroit some great field position, and they'd go down to a 1st and goal situation where Jared Goff found Patrick on a swing pass, and he dived for the end zone. Touchdown was given, but it was overturned, and they're like, oh shucks, I guess Montgomery will punch it in. His second touchdown of the game, this one from 1 yard out, putting the Lions up 27-3. Cowboys got a great 79-yard kickoff return by Kevontae Turpin to put them in field goal range, but they'd stall again, that offense, settling for the field goal, cutting it to 27-6 going into halftime. It wouldn't take long for Detroit to open the second half, scoring. In the third quarter, Jared Goff would find the Cowboys' defense off guard a bit with a quick snap, and he found Jameson Williams, who took off down the field. A 37-yard touchdown put Detroit up 34-6. And while at big, we'd see some really shitty thing for Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson, he'd sack Dak Prescott, but he got hurt. The NFL sack leader was looking pretty emotional with the pain, and he'd get carted off the field. And when you saw the replay, you could see why. He'd have to get carted off, obviously, because his leg collided with the leg of Aleem McNeil, and you could just see it dangling there. It reminded me of an MMA broken shin kind of injury. You could read Hutchinson's lips. He's like, it's broken. And he was right. Hutchinson sustained a fractured tibia and fibula, already undergone the surgery. Obviously, no timetable for his return. Such a gruesome looking injury. I guess usually injuries of this kind of ilk or 6 to 8 months recovery, but who knows? It's different for everybody. It just sucks to see the NFL sack leader to go down like that. I guess a rod was put in the leg, but like I said, you hate to see it. I'm not a Lions guy, right? I'm a Packers guy. You heard that, but you hate to see it as an NFL fan, a fan of sports in general. You hate injuries. And it's like, he's a good dude, but that's the thing in sports. This could happen at any moment. That's why you really got to embrace the moment and take nothing for granted. But the game would continue. The Cowboys would go to their usual thing, hitting another field goal. Brandon Aubrey hitting one that cut it to 34-9. He was looking like the best player on the field for Dallas, and Detroit answered with a field goal of their own to make it 37-9, and the Cowboys were still trying to get some points on the board, making it a little more respectable. Dak Prescott found Ryan Flournoy, the 6th-round pick out of Southeast Missouri State. The wide receiver made his first NFL catch, but proceeded to fumble, leading to Detroit recovering the ball. A roller coaster of emotions for Flournoy's first NFL touch. The nice catch to the, oh shit, I fumbled. Detroit would settle for another Bates field goal. They tried a hook and ladder play with a lineman, but that play was called back due to penalty, and that put them up 40-9. facing a fourth down their own end, now down 31 points. Cowboys went for it. Dak's pass was intercepted by Brian Branch, his second of the game on Dak. Nice return, too, bringing the Lions inside the 5-yard line where Goff found Amon-Ra St. Brown. Easy pitch and catch put Detroit up 47-9. For the rest of the fourth quarter, Cooper Rush would come in to finish the game for Dak, and the Cowboys went into a first-and-goal situation. When on fourth down, Detroit's Kirby Joseph picked off Cooper Rush in the end zone, really summing the game up for the Cowboys. We get to see Lions backup quarterback Hendon Hooker come out to play some time there, Detroit. And Goff, he got to get some rest on the sidelines. Cowboys, again, looking for any kind of positivity, but again, fumbled the ball with Detroit recovering. I mean, this was as ugly a loss as you could have in front of your home crowd. And the third loss of the season at home. The Cowboys, 3-0 on the road, 0-3 at home. And in this game, that was awful. They had no chance. It was over early. The Lions never let up, making the Cowboys look just awful in defeat. And that all happened on owner Jerry Jones' 82nd birthday. Not the gift he was looking for. And the only thing that probably made him feel a little better is maybe he might fire Mike McCarthy. No word yet on McCarthy's coaching status. He's still the guy. But with a loss like that at home on your birthday, you know Jerry is not happy. For Detroit, this is another dominant win. They're third in a row now. They do it in so many areas of the field. They're really one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NFL. Goff's making all the right throws. Starts with that running game, though. That 70s cop TV show pairing of Montgomery and Gibbs. It's something else. We're going to have to talk about David Montgomery the way we talk about Minnesota's Chris Carter. All he does is score touchdowns. We'll have to keep that franchise record touchdown streak going, I think, in the next week. But we've got to, again, bring up Aiden Hutchinson. The guy's just a bundle of energy. You love to see him on the field. He's a joy for everyone to watch. Losing the NFL sack leader, like I said, it's massive. You can't just replace a guy like that. But if there's anyone or any team that can try to motivate a next guy up, it's the Lions and Dan Campbell. So I'm interested to see how Week 7 goes. After the Week 6 recap, I'll do the picks. And there's a big matchup coming up for the Lions here. The Sunday night matchup was an intriguing one between the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Giants. The visiting Bengals coming off that crushing OT loss in Baltimore to the Ravens, while the Giants were returning home after their big road win in Seattle. One thing for sure, the Giants were without star rookie Malik Nabers. He was missing his second straight game with a concussion. And the Bengals opened the scoring in a very unlikely fashion. When faced with a long 3rd and 18, Joe Burrow dropped back the pass. He saw some open real estate and said, fuck it. He went for it, barely outrunning defenders at the end, but diving for the end zone as Joe Burrow scored on the 47-yard rushing touchdown. I don't know who had Joe Burrow almost running in a touchdown from 50 yards on their bingo card, but kudos to you. The Giants looked to respond, moving the ball down the field very nicely. Daniel Jones held in the pocket to try to make the throw, but maybe held in on a little too much, getting hit by B.J. Hill, and that pass just lofted in the air where Jermaine Pratt made the red zone interception, killing the Giants' drive with no points. There'd be no scoring in the first half, minus that long run by Burrow. And to start the second, the Giants would have possession. But they got a 4th and 2, and they decided to go for it from their own 38, where Jones's pass was incomplete, turning the ball over and giving the Bengals great field possession. But the Bengals gave it right back. Zach Moss fumbling it away, and the Giants recovered. Giants really bailing their coach out on that decision. And the Bengals, that was already their 4th fumble loss of the season. Giants would then march down the field, converting 4th downs along the way, getting a play via defensive pass interference in the end zone. They'd get the ball at the 1 and 5th-round pick out of Purdue. Tyrone Tracy Jr. punched it in, tying the game at 7. The Bengals looked to answer and marched right down the field where London, Ontario's Chase Brown looked to score, but an offensive holding penalty negated the score. The following play, Burrow was sacked by Giants' Dexter Lawrence, forcing a McPherson field goal at 37 yards. And instead of scoring a touchdown, the Bengals walked away with a field goal and led 10-7 late in the quarter. Giants looked to respond with a field goal of their own, and the Giants had a new holder, newly signed punter Matt Hack, holding it. The Giants kicker Greg Joseph, his kick swerved badly, keeping the Giants trailing 10-7. On the Bengals' possession, Burrow's pass on 3rd down went incomplete, and he took a big hit by Brian Burns, requiring Burrow to go in the blue medical tent because his head smashed into the back of the ground. And that gave the ball back to the Giants deep in their own territory where they'd go for 4th down, and they'd fail again. Joe Burrow had come out of the tent and he was looking to go. He returned to the field as they tried to kill some clock. Chase Brown busted a long run, but he fumbled the ball. The Giants whiffed on the recovery, went out of bounds, and the Bengals kept the ball, dodging a bullet. And what a bullet that was dodged. A few plays later, Chase Brown avenged that fumble by running into the end zone from 30 yards out. Third NFL touchdown for the Canadian on the season, put the Bengals up 17-7. Down 2 possessions, the Giants would go for a field goal to try to stay alive, cutting it to a 1-possession game. But Greg Joseph would miss his second field goal of the game, and the Giants, they trailed by 10 and they lose by 10, falling 17-7 at home. It wasn't pretty, but Cincinnati picked up the much-needed road win, moving to 2-4 on the season, keeping their slim playoff hopes alive after this tough start, and they did just enough to escape New York with the win. The running game, they wasn't too great for the Bengals, but Burrow had that long touchdown run to lead the team in rushing. Chase Brown made some strides and may have done enough to take Zach Moss's starting position, especially after Moss's fumble. But I mean, so did Brown. He fumbled too. So we'll see which running back gets more touches going into the following week. For the Giants, they were right there in this game. Defense keeping them in it, but the offense struggling to find the end zone. And they look to cap their drives off with points. Greg Joseph would miss the field goals. So frustrating night all around for the Giants. I mean, a silver lining, the emergence of Tyrone Tracy Jr. Maybe he'll get some more touches going forward. Even with Devin Singletary, when he does come back to the lineup, I think they're going to have to mix Tracy Jr. in. He looked pretty good, especially out of the backfield. But they are still alive in the NFC. You know, a tough blemish on Daniel Jones' resume in the loss. He's now 1-14 in primetime games, which is the worst record by any quarterback in primetime games since 1970. And to wrap up Week 7, we had the AFC East battle, another divisional battle between the Buffalo Bills and New York Jets. The Bills were coming into the game following a lackluster performance against the Texans, while the Jets were looking at life without Robert Saleh. The head coach was surprisingly fired after their Week 6 loss to Minnesota, their second in a row, and we get to see interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich take on the head coaching position for the first time in the interim role. These two teams look very different today after the game, but we'll get to that in a bit. The Jets opened the scoring with a Greg Zuerlein field goal, taking the early lead, but the Bills responded by moving right down the field, and Josh Allen would punch it in, giving the Bills a 7-3 lead. It would be the Jets' time to respond, and after moving the ball down the field, Aaron Rodgers would slide in the pocket before finding wide receiver Garrett Wilson in the end zone. It was initially called incomplete, but the call was overturned, and the 5-yard pass stood. Jets went up 10-7. Buffalo would have the ball deep in their own territory, with Josh Allen would scramble around, even taking a few steps in his own end zone before buying enough time to find running back Ray Davis deep down the field. Another crazy play that only a handful of quarterbacks in the league could make. It's funny, on the Manning cast, Peyton Manning was like, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. And then you could see the disbelief on his face and the smirk on Coach Belichick's face as the 42-yard play was completed. I love Belichick on the Manning cast, by the way. But as the drive continued, the Bills capped it off with another touchdown, this time Josh Allen using his arm to score, finding Mac Hollins for the 8-yard touchdown. Tyler Bass missed the extra point, though, keeping it a game within a field goal at 13-10. Late in the first half, Buffalo looked to add more points, again moving down the field. Excuse me. Josh Allen, doing what he does best, slithered away from the pass rush before finding Dawson Knox in the end zone. 12-yard touchdown put the Bills up 20-10 with just 21 seconds left in the half. You wonder what the Jets would do, just go in the halftime, and then you're like, wait a minute, they have Aaron Rodgers. And with the last play of the second half, Aaron Rodgers chucked up a Hail Mary, and for the 4th time in his career, he'd complete the Hail Mary touchdown completion. Aaron Rodgers gave his guy a chance, and that guy was former Packer teammate Allen Lazard. 52-yard touchdown catch before the ball was ripped away after the fact. An amazing play that stole a bit of Buffalo's momentum, cutting that lead in the 20-17 going into the half. In the third quarter, Breece Hall busted out a wonderful 41-yard run to get deep in the Bills' territory. He could have scored, but you got to look at the film and look at Taylor Rapp's hustle on that play, going all the way across the field to make the touchdown-saving tackle. And that hustle was huge, as the Jets couldn't punch it in and settled for a Zuerlein field goal. And the game was tied at 20. The Jets looked to try to take the lead on their next possession, had great chances. Braylon Allen scored on a touchdown, but a penalty took it away. Then Rodgers found Wilson in the back of the end zone, but the ball was dislodged by the combined hit of Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp. I mean, they collided on him, and the ball came out. He was a little sore, but he stayed in the game. 32-yard field goal attempt, right? Zerline missed the chip shot. I mean, there were some swirling winds, but you got to make that kick, and the game stayed tied at 20. Buffalo's defense, or their offense, stalled against the Jets' defense, and they get it back to Rodgers, where the Jets move the ball effectively again, settling for another field goal attempt. And just like his last try, Zerline missed it. This time, doinking it off the uprights, keeping the game still at 20-20. This time, the Bills had to capitalize off a missed field goal, and they'd go down the field getting a field goal of their own, where Tyler Bass would hit the chip shot, putting the Bills up 23-20 with 3:43 left on the clock. Again, the Rodgers is with the Jets, so you knew this game could end spicy. First play of the Jets drive, Aaron Rodgers got sacked and fumbled where the Bills recovered. But the replay showed Aaron Rodgers' arm was moving in a forward motion before the ball literally fell out of his hands. But they called it incomplete. I thought this is some Tuck 2.0 bullshit, so it was nice to hear Aikman go down the same route. The optics scream fumble, but the letter of the law made it different. The Bills fought the law, and the law won. The replay decision said Jets keep the ball. Sean McDermott's like, I want to challenge that replay decision, but that's not a thing. A few plays later, the Jets picked up a first down through a defensive PI, and they were rolling. And then they'd pick up a first down, have it taken away by a penalty of their own. The Zebras were tossing their laundry all over the field, and the teams finished with a combined 22 penalties for 204 yards. Aaron Rodgers looked deep to try to find receiver Mike Williams, but there was some miscommunication. Maybe Rodgers intentionally underthrew it to try to get him to come back. Regardless, Williams slipped. Taron Johnson made a pretty unreal interception, pulling off the full front flip in the motion just as we went into the 2-minute warning. And from there, the Bills took over. The Jets had timeouts, so two runs, 2 timeouts burnt. Bills were faced with third down. Are they going to throw it? Are they going to run it and try to get that timeout burnt? They'd settle with Josh Allen running to the outside and picking up the game-sealing first down. Just a wild sequence to end the game. Michael Williams also picked up an injury on that interception. No pity from Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, though, as he went on Pat McAfee and explained how wrong Williams was on that play. I mean, he didn't mention how he could have just checked down the Breece Hall and lived another down, probably even picking up a first down. But who am I to tell Aaron Rodgers what the hell to do in a late game situation? Like, what am I saying? I'm not one to say that. I mean, he made the throw, and if he felt he ran the wrong road, he probably did. But, some may argue that he should just take the blame, as Ryan Fitzpatrick had said on X there. But maybe this is the kind of fire to try to get Mike Williams going. I mean, he hasn't lit it up this year. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully his injury isn't too big. But it was a tough loss for the Jets in the Jeff Ulbrich era. They played well, but came up short. I mean, 2 missed field goals, that's tough. That's going to bite you in the ass wherever you go. And for the Bills, you're happy to pull this out. Offense stalled a bit, but you did just enough to get the win. The emergence of Ray Davis is pretty promising. Putting up numbers in this tough against a tough Jets defense is always good. But the Bills 4-2, leading the AFC East, while the Jets dropped to 2-4. Now, before I get to my Week 7 picks, I mentioned there's some big moves on NFL trade deadline day. Usually this date passes with minimal movement, but not this time around. The Jets angry after that loss, and I already mentioned Aaron Rodgers' distaste for his wide receivers play on the game-ending interception. So the Jets look to appease the future of a Hall of Famer quarterback, bringing in an old friend. We knew something was coming with the hints of Pat McAfee was leaving on his socials earlier in the day, and Davante Adams, the Las Vegas wide receiver who had demanded a trade, dealing with a hamstring injury, got his wish and was reunited with former Green Bay teammate Aaron Rodgers. Even popped up behind Rodgers on his McAfee appearance. I mean, that hamstring injury that's kept him out of the last few Raiders game is suddenly better, so it's been tough for the Raiders fans this year. Getting a third rounder that could become a second does not seem fair for a guy like Davante Adams. With Adams going to the Jets, they have one of the best wide receiving duos in the league with him and Garrett Wilson. This could really impact the Jets. Davante Adams, obviously I'm a Packers fan, but I think he's one of the best wide receivers in the game. And if he can play like he's capable of with Rodgers, could be turning things around there. And the Bills saw that trade and said, shit, I know we just beat this team, but we got to do something. So Buffalo acquired the Cleveland Browns top wide receiver, Amari Cooper. They picked up Cooper in a 6th-round pick in exchange for a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. a massive deal that went down just hours after that first deal I mentioned. The AFC East going tit for tat. I like the deal for Buffalo, getting a star wide receiver back in that locker room to fill the absence left by Stephon Diggs when he left in the offseason. That's big. For Cleveland, oh man, that's got to be rough. This team's barely trying to stay afloat. Just threw away one of your life preservers, your best receiver, so tough to be a Browns fan at the moment. And the other trade I'd like to mention isn't as big as the other two wide receivers on the go, but the undefeated Minnesota Vikings acquired running back Cam Akers from the Houston Texans for a 2026 sixth-round pick. Both teams have dealt with injuries at the running back position, and Akers has experience playing with the Vikings, so we'll see how this impacts them going forward. This also shows the trust and the health that the Texans have in running backs, Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce, who returned and had great games, as we mentioned earlier. And they always have Dario Ogunbowale. He's always kicking around. Next, we got my weekly picks. And let me tell you, I did pretty good last week. 12-2 on my picks. Ren City, Mike Caliente. The only two I got wrong, I had the Jaguars beating the Bears. Why do I keep getting burned by the Jaguars? And the other pick, I had the Titans beating the Colts, but they blew it. And again, I'm saying quarterback production isn't where it needs to be late in those games. But anyway, we'll look at week 7. Big time matches. Two teams on byes this week. The Dallas Cowboys, who have never needed a bye more. And the Chicago Bears, who get a nice leisurely flight home from the UK, fresh off another win. So let's do it. Let's go to today's game. It's Thursday. Quick turnaround for two teams coming off tough losses. The Broncos were slow starters in their loss to the Chargers, but almost came back. Well, the Saints did the opposite, fizzling in the second half. So it's looking like a long shot for Derek Carr to get out of the shop and make a start for this game. He missed week 6 with that oblique injury, and it might be able to soon rush him back. He's going to probably miss a few weeks. With that injury said, we'll see all-out rookie quarterback battle. 5th-round pick Spencer Rattler getting the start, trying to end the Saints' current 4-game losing streak, taking on number 2 overall pick Bo Nix. 3-3 Broncos had their 3-game winning streak snapped in their last game. This could be a trap game for the Broncos. I mean, they have been playing better than the Saints the last few weeks, and it's a bit of a homecoming for head coach Sean Payton. He was, of course, the coach of the Saints when they won their one and only Super Bowl 44 over the Colts. The Saints have had some positives coming out of their prior loss, and I'm guessing the film room was filled with more corrective measures than anything. So this could lead to the Saints pulling it off, but I'm leaning the other way. I've mentioned the impressiveness of Bo Nix. I think the running game is going to be a little better, and I think the Broncos are going to go in the Nolans and take the win. Sunday, we have an early epic battle in London of the 1-5 teams. The New England Patriots suffered that 20-point beatdown before leaving the USA for London, where number 3 overall pick Drake May showed some positives, giving Patriots fans some hope for the future. They're facing off with a Jacksonville team that's been hanging out in London for a week, filling up on fish and chips and curry and Whisper bars, I imagine. Anything to help with the sorrows of their NFL season thus far. The Jaguars have been pretty disastrous in their game against the Bears at Tottenham Stadium, and whenever they tried to make a defensive play, they'd shoot themselves in the foot. A la MC Cheddar Bob I mentioned earlier. So maybe the change of scenery will do the Jaguars better this upcoming London games at Wembley. And I don't see how the Jaguars defense, I don't see them making as many mental mistakes. Trevor Lawrence will sustain longer drives, giving them some rest. See Drake May making some great plays, but I see him losing his 2nd consecutive start. I feel like a degenerate gambler constantly saying the Jaguars are due, but I feel the less traveled team in this instance will take the win, and the already stationed London-Jacksonville team will grab their 2nd win before the Patriots, giving the Pats their 6th loss in a row. We'll see if these bloody Jaguars burn me again. Fun fact, the only regular season NFL game I've ever attended was at Wembley. That was the Patriots and Buccaneers game where I went with my dad to witness the showdown between Tom Brady and Josh Freeman, where I think you can imagine who won that game. It was the Pats. But one of the marquee matchups of Week 7, a battle that 2 of the best teams in one of the best divisions in the NFL right now, the NFC North. You have 4-1 Detroit taking their 3-game winning streak in the Minnesota. They take on the undefeated Minnesota Vikings at 5-0, one of only 2 undefeated teams left in the league. The Vikings coming in fresh off a bye, and the Lions may have as well been on a bye with their easy win in Dallas. Sam Darnold's life should be a little easier without sack machine Aiden Hutchinson out for the Lions. I hate that he had to suffer such a devastating injury in this. This should be one hard-fought game. Both offenses are very potent, but I'd have to give the slight defensive edge to Minnesota. I see them defending their home turf and Sam Darnold dazzling again, and the Vikings will remain undefeated moving to 6-0. while giving the Lions their second loss of the season. I just think the offenses are pretty even, but the difference will be some defensive scheme thought up by Minnesota's defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, one of the best in the game. It'll be a great game, but I think the Vikings will win this NFC North battle. The 1-4 Titans, fresh off a loss, head into Buffalo to take on the kind of new look Bills. I think the Titans are looking to still roll with Will Levis, but you got to wonder for how long. Their defense is playing too well to have that kind of quarterback play. It's pretty poor, but the Bills, fresh off that big divisional win over the Jets, sit 4-2, and then Murray Cooper, his new star receiver, is going to be catching balls from Josh Allen. I think that's going to be awesome. Cooper is such skill getting open, and when he catches the ball, he's a beast to try to bring down. He does currently lead the NFL in drops, and he's known to drop a few over his career. And the Bills are hoping he leaves those drops in Cleveland as he leaves town. And since Stephon Diggs left for Houston, everyone said the Bills lack superstars. Now they have a premier wide receiver. He's made big plays everywhere he's played, and I'm intrigued to see how Cooper and Josh Allen goes. That's Samare. With all that being said, I feel the Bills are just better than the Titans, especially at that quarterback position. I'm chopping up an easy Bills win at home, and maybe another L in the column will finally get that quarterback change for the Titans. The 2-3 Dolphins are coming off a bye week, letting some of their injured guys heal up a little more. But a lot of the big names still missing. Tua Tagovailoa still out with that concussion. Looking like Devon Achane may miss the game with his concussion as well. At least the bye gave Snoop Huntley some more time to grasp this offense. Speaking of quarterback play, it looks like Joe Flacco has fulfilled his duty as backup quarterback. A damn good duty, I must say, as he returns to backup quarterback, letting Anthony Richardson get the starting job again. The oblique injury that's kept him out the last few games has healed to the point where we'll see him back on the field. Flacco's been great, so hopefully Richardson can slide right back into that role. I'm excited to see him on the field. Honestly, the guy makes some of the most incredible plays you'll ever see on a football field. He might make a few boneheaded plays here and there, but maybe some of the time off the field helped with that. The Dolphins will be rested, but I don't see the rest being the all-cures-all remedy for the struggling offense. I see them improving from that game in their win over the Patriots, but not to the point where they're going to beat the Colts. I see Indy winning at this one. Seahawks and Falcons, an all-bird matchup. The 3-3 Seattle Seahawks, who are licking their feathers after back-to-back losses at home and 3 losses in a row overall. They'll be flying southeast to take on the 4-2 Falcons. Kirk Cousins and the Dirty Birds have won 4 of their last 5. That one loss coming to the Chiefs, so they've been rolling. This should be a really exciting matchup with 2 quarterbacks that are capable of putting up big numbers. But to sound a little old school here, I think it's going to come down to which team can establish and stay with that running game more. You have the workhorses going up against each other. The 1-2 punch of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier is one of the best in the game, at least one of the most physical 1-2 punches in the game. They'll be facing a good contender of their own with Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. Despite the battle of aerial mascots, I'm placing the importance on the ground in this one, and I think ATL is going to do it a little better, setting up some more "you like that" plays from Kirk Cousins. I see Atlanta taking the big win at Seattle over Seattle, which would be Seattle's 4th consecutive loss after starting the season 3-0. And what could be one of the games of the week, you have a matchup of 2 of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now. CJ Stroud and the 5-1 Texans heading in the Lambeau to face off with the Jordan Love and 4-2 Packers. My Packers are in for a tough one with the Texans. The Texans still missing superstar Nico Collins, who's on the IR, but they have plenty of game breakers still. The biggest one, and I think the Packers need to be worried about, is that running back number 28, Joe Mixon. He showed in his return from his injury that what he's capable of on the field, and the Texans, they reach another level when he's rolling. Dameon Pierce, he's back. He looked great. That's what made Cam Akers expendable in that trade I mentioned earlier. So Green Bay needs to try to get those runs stopped by those dudes, because that'll slow CJ Stroud down as well, and they got to try to get pressure on him. These are things that are not easy by any means. I mean, offensively, you let Jordan Love cook. He's at home, marquee matchup. I see him hitting at least 4 touchdowns in this game. Romeo Doubs, he answered the critics with a great game, but let's not forget the running game of the Packers. Josh Jacobs, he's probably going to get the brunt of the carries, but after him, it's a really run-by-committee team by the Packers. Whatever works, man. I want to see lots of points in this one. I want to see the game come down to a field goal, and the Packers' newly signed kicker, Brandon McManus, kicking it through, bringing faith to the Packers kicking game we haven't seen since a younger Mason Crosby. big AFC North matchup in the Battle of Ohio's. This is more like a battle of Onos when you look at the records. The 2-4 Bengals feeling a little better after their Sunday night football win over the Giants, while the Browns, they just traded their best wide receiver, rocking a 4-game losing streak, sitting at 1-5. I see the Bengals building off their win and playing a little bit better than they did against the Giants. That Browns defense, it has pride, and it could really throw some wrenches at the Bengals here, but I don't see the Browns offense getting better, trading away their best player. So we're going to see more Deshaun struggles. See the Bengals taking the win here, getting the bragging rights of Ohio. But we'll stick with some more individual bouts where we have a big one in the NFC East, where the 3-2 Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 2-4 Giants. Eagles came out of that bye week with a big win, while the Giants faltered on prime time. Biggest story of this game, obviously, is Saquon Barkley returning to New York. He was great in New York and not so much rewarded for it, so he took his talents to the rivals, and I think he's going to get a mixed response from the fan base. Mostly boos, but Barkley will turn those boos into boo-hoos. I think he's going to go all out against his former club, putting up points, forcing Daniel Jones into making some forceful throws for the Giants, which is never a good thing. Their only hope's getting that running game going, and if maybe Tyrone Tracy Jr. can do something for them, but I'm not sure. The Giants can get pressure on the quarterback. Jalen Hurts does like to hold the ball. Maybe they can force turnovers. I think that'll be the only way they can try to stay in this game. I think Saquon's just going to be way too much, and the whole Eagles team's going to be behind him, sticking it to his old team. And I think the Eagles win this one. Battle of some West Coast teams in different conferences. You have the 2-4 Raiders starting life without Devontae Adams around. I don't think Antonio Pierce is going to mind that too much. And like I said, I don't see him flip-flopping quarterbacks each week, so O'Connell's going to probably go. Owner Mark Davis, talking about new minority owner Tom Brady buying into the team, saying maybe Brady can help him get quarterbacks. I mean, that's kind of a slap to the quarterbacks, but to be fair, they kind of deserve it. I mean, no one deserves a slap, I guess. We're not Will Smith at the Oscars, but we'll see how the quarterback play goes in this one. That struggling squad will be taking on another struggling squad, the 1-4 Rams, coming off a bye week. They're dealing with some injuries. Cooper Kupp, he's going to be a game-time decision in this one. If he's good to go, it'll really help. And Matthew Stafford, I mean, he's been trying to get the most out of he can at this stage of his career. The big part of this game is going to come down the late quarterback play. And when you look at the two sides, I got to give the edge to the vet here. I see the Rams collecting their second win of the season, winning at home over the Raiders. The 1-5 Carolina Panthers are looking to get some of that spark from that win that seems so long ago. They've now lost 3 in a row when they head into the American capital to face off with one of the best teams in the league. The Washington Commanders, they lost a tough one to Baltimore, reminding them of where they need to get to in this league. I think that was an eye-opener that's giving the lead to Jaden Daniels, having maybe one of his best games as a pro, which is a pretty high bar already, but I see the Commanders just sticking it to the Panthers to get back on winning ways. I see Dalton playing well, but not well enough to maybe continue to keep his job. When are we going to see Bryce Young back in the mix? I mean, if you're going to continue to lose, you may as well go with the guy that you traded up to get. You know, he's had time to sit and watch. Maybe this defeat by the Commanders will get him back in the game, but like I said, I see Washington winning that one. Another potential game of the week, I'm throwing that out a bit here. Super Bowl rematch from last year. The undefeated Kansas City Chiefs take their perfect 5-0 record into San Fran to face the 3-3 49ers. 49ers still going without Offensive Player of the Year Christian McCaffrey, and now his solid backup Jordan Mason's going to miss some time with that shoulder injury I mentioned earlier. That limits the 49ers at running back, where we'll probably see them rolling with lots of 4th-round pick out of Louisville, Isaac Guerrero. Chiefs, they know all about injured running backs, with Isaiah Pacheco still out. Kareem Hunt played pretty good in his return with the club, and both teams will be rocking that next man up mentality. It's going to come down to which defense can make the big stops on 3rd or even 4th down, and we see Patrick Mahomes cause baldness in front of our very eyes on the sidelines with the outrageous runs he makes, with the late checkoffs to his tight end, usually Kelsey, but Noah Gray's been pretty sweet at it too. Brock Purdy's capable of making a play or two like that himself. So which superstar defender is going to step up and make the play when you need it? You're going to see Chris Jones and the Chiefs make the right play? Are you going to see Fred Warner, who who am I kidding? We're always going to see Fred Warner make a play. It's just when and what big impact it's going to have. But I'm going to lean with the home team on this one. I feel the 49ers, they have that internal rage from that Super Bowl loss last season. And I think it's going to be enough to give them the edge to give the Chiefs their first loss of the season. I'm going 49ers in this one. The Sunday night game has all kinds of storylines coming into it. Reunited and it feels so good. The 2-4 Jets bringing Devontae Adams back to bring him with Aaron Rodgers and former fellow teammate receiver Alan Lazard. Team's got those feel-good vibes, but can they bring those good vibrations to Pittsburgh, where there's been a controversy at the quarterback afoot? Justin Fields, he's led this team to a 4-2 record. Granted, not the flashiest ways with the arms, but do you want flash or do you want wins? And despite this great start to Fields' career in Pittsburgh, it's looking like fellow newly signed quarterback Russell Wilson is going to get the start. He's been getting the reps with the starters. When you go to the ESPN depth chart, Wilson's QB number 1. This does seem weird. You're 4-2. Why are you going the Russell, last name Wilson, at this time of the year? You know, I mean, unless there were things said as he signed, like, you're going to be our guy if you're healthy. If there were promises said, Mike Tomlin seems like a stand up enough guy to hold a promise, and Russell Wilson seems like a guy that's going to make you hold yourself accountable to that promise. But regardless, I don't know. They're facing one of the best defenses in the league with the New York Jets. Is that where you want to roll out Wilson? I mean, if you want to test him, this is how you test him. I don't think Fields is a guy that's going to cause a big scene over this. And I mean, Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL. So we'll see how this plays out. This is the soap opera of the NFL. Always uncertainty. You never know what's going to happen. I think one thing's certain. Rodgers is going to hook up with Adams for at least a touchdown in this one. And I see Jeff Ulbrich winning the first game here under his tenure of coach and maybe making the Steelers question the Russ move. We'll see what happens. But we'll go to Monday where we have a double Monday nighter. My third pick for a potential game of the week is one of the two games. The Ravens and their 4-game winning streak head into Tampa Bay to take on the 4-2 Bucks. The Ravens running game of Jackson and Henry has been something else, and I don't see that getting slowed down too much. I think both quarterbacks are going to have nice games, really moving the ball down the field, but the difference will be the physical running of Henry. Late in the game, as he always does, he's going to put pressure on that Tufts Buck defense, and it'll be up to them to try to make the stop. But it's something about tragedies and the uplifting moments in the community that sneak their way into sports. And I think everything going on with Florida, especially in the Tampa Bay area, from the hurricanes that have rolled through, I think that's going to play into this. I think that Tampa mentality with a guy like Baker Mayfield who feeds off this stuff. I mean, the guy watches Mike Tyson fights before games. I think it's going to be a shootout, unreal plays from both sides, but I see Tampa Bay pulling it off and ending Baltimore's winning streak. And my last prediction of week 7, it's a Monday night game, obviously. The dual Monday nighters. This one, 3-2 Los Angeles Chargers flying into the desert to take on the 2-4 Cardinals. Hoping still all is well with Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh after that scary heart episode for last week's game. Chargers are probably feeling good, with especially Marvin Harrison Jr. maybe missing this one with that concussion. But these are the games where the Chargers have tricked us before. What doesn't matter whether it's Herbert, whether it's Rivers, Stan Humphries, you know, they seem to lose these big games. And this is a game, you know, it doesn't look big on paper, but it's a game they should win. And I think they're going to lose it in prime time. I'm expecting a big running night from James Conner, and that's going to get Kyler Murray going. And when Murray's going, his Call of Duty fam's going to be tuning in, and they're going to light it up. I see the running game being the big difference for the Cardinals in this one, making up for Marvin Harrison Jr.'s absence. And the Cardinals will beat the Chargers on Monday night. And there you have it, NFL recap with predictions to boots. I can't believe I went 12-2 last week. That's on fire. It's probably because I didn't bet and curse it with my dirty Betty grubbing hands. But regardless, we have a good week 7 coming up. Like I said, the London game. You got a big Thursday night game coming on. So hopefully you're tuning into that. And thanks again for tuning into this. Ren Studio.